Alright, it's epilogue time. I presume we'll get the same speech from Lysara / Edale about like, oh, here's the Dark God and the Demon God, and give us all that exposition. That's okay, though. We'll just watch it like normal. So we're going to watch Departure, and this is, in my opinion, one of the better outcomes, I think, just based on Edale's situation. But we'll see. Let's see. I have no idea what's going to be in this epilogue other than the fact that if Edale's corrupted, it's terrible. Only mere minutes later. As I mentioned last time, this is not the canonical end. The canonical end is Gardon and Van Doors being killed, but this was the Golden Guard path, and I love that the campaign split and allowed you to play both in any case. Never ever would I have thought that I'd lead a crusade against the Empire and the Emperor. I'm afraid that the corruption goes deep. We must be prepared. Very well then, no more delay. We will either purge the Empire or die trying. For the first time in forever, the Golden Guard is finally doing something useful. Too bad that their victory made your deception entirely pointless, Saphira. Gardon died. That's a success as far as I'm concerned. That slaver was a monster. A monster, yes, but he could have served balance. Regardless, it doesn't matter. The Paladins and their cannon will take his place. They will be a shield against the demons for a long time. We'll use this time to deal with our other enemies. See, Gardon was too successful against the demons, so the undead had to destroy the cannon, but here they didn't. The Orcs and their tribal dominion, on the other hand, we'll have to watch them. Bloodclaw prevented them from adding the fishmen to their ranks, yet they're a powerful force, not to be underestimated. The entrance to the Dead Mountain has been permanently sealed, and the mortals will be kept at bay by your agents. We'll be right within their lands without them knowing. My forces and I will be ready whenever you need us, Eridon, no matter the foe. All of you have served me well. For the time being, our intervention is no longer required. We will disappear from mortal eyes until the time is right. Oh, okay, so yeah, this is the same. You cannot remove me from your head, girl. You and I are one now. This is no longer your body. It is our body, our soul, our mind. Just as I cannot exist without you, you cannot exist without me. We are bound together. Your sister fooled you. We can still get your father if... Silence! You cannot control or manipulate me anymore. Your power may be mine, but my will is my own. I am in control. No one should be in control like this, dear. We are allies. Well, yes, allies. If I cannot get rid of you, I will instead take control of you. What? No! What are you doing? You've given me your power, Lysara. This power allows me to control you as you wanted to control me. No, Edale, don't. You cannot break me. I will never serve you. You are mine. I am yours, mistress. Good. You will now tell me about this Dark One of yours. Yes, mistress. The Dark One, the Demon God, the Master of Shadows, and the Avatar of Death were the four, etc., etc. Okay, so we've been through this. This is interesting, though, to learn about like who's manipulating the Emperor. I think what's interesting here is that Edale doesn't directly impact the ending if she's uncorrupted. As compared to Gardon, where... Well, actually, it's opposite, right? So in the Gardon ending, if she's uncorrupted, she directly influences the ending in that she comes and shields Claire to stop Merlon from dying. And if she's corrupted, she does nothing. She stands on the cliff and monologues about the Dark Guy because Lysara has taken full control. In this instance, because she's uncorrupted, she has zero impact, stands on the cliff, monologues. But we will see when we corrupt her, she has a direct impact on the ending for the Golden Guard. But otherwise, I actually think I like the Golden Guard path better. The cannon is there. We can keep the demons at bay even without a pact from Ibira. The Golden Guard are going to go and secure the Empire, and maybe Van Doors, if he survives, will understand the issue. Bring me the bodies of Cora Redfist and Scarlet Redka. As you wish. Oh, he wants both of them. Your Grace, we have just received news from the Imperial Navy. It is just as you predicted. Van Doors and the Golden Guard have turned against us. That is most unfortunate indeed. My uncle and his soldiers were loyal servants, but when I heard that Van Doors was not dealing with Gardon personally, it was obvious. What are they doing now? They built a massive fleet and are on their way now to the Empire. Van Doors wants to launch a crusade against you, Your Grace. Let them come. We will be ready for them. They will fail miserably. Our airship will soon arrive at the capital, Your Grace. Very good. Make sure that everything is prepared. Of course, Your Grace. Yep, okay. So, I mean, we knew that. We knew that, but, you know, it all ties together. So what I was saying is if Van Doors does succeed, he may be willing to go back to Arkain, the continent, and say, hey, we fucked up, but we gave you this cannon. Let's improve relations. So in that way, while it is non-canonical because it's way too optimistic, that's why that is not the canonical path. The canonical path is asshole Gardon ruling Arkain for the most part. Carol being independent, but for the most part just completely suppressed. Orcs running rampant in Salria, and I guess the only positive is that the demons have a pact via Ebira such that they... Well, I don't know. In the canonical version, I didn't know if there was a pact or not. I think in the canonical timeline, they put out Tori's dies, which implies that there was no pact. So it's sort of like the worst possible Gardon outcome, as well as, like, consider the canonical outcome, which I think is funny. But I do like the Golden Guard outcome a lot more, personally, because the kingdoms are remotely secure because of the canon. The Undead are willing to just mind their own fucking business for once. And the Golden Guard... sail home to try to secure the Empire, which, I don't know, could be its own story, its own non-canonical story, which would be neat to see how that goes. I don't know if... Hey, sure, make some more maps, even though you explicitly said you won't, that where it's the Golden Guard fighting the Empire. That would be neat. Okay, so I'm going to modify my save so that Edale is a meanie head, and we'll rewatch the epilogue, and it'll be pretty sad. All right. Okay, here we are finishing the Golden Crusade again, just at the very end here, just with cheats. Just so you can see the ending is a little different, and then the epilogue will also be significantly different. So let's check it out. That should do it. Look, our allies are alive this time. How exciting. I wonder how that happened. I'm sorry, sir, but my men have spent hours searching for him. Marin seems to have disappeared. He and all his machines and airships. Gone. The Templars whom you had sent to protect him have been found around his workshop. They're all dead. This doesn't make any sense. Marin had a sizable force to protect him. All of our enemies on this continent are either destroyed or too weak to do this. Unless... Apologies, sir, but there can only be one explanation. Marin must have betrayed us. Only his machines would be powerful enough to... Silence! Marin would never betray me. Keep looking for him. I will get on the ship and prepare our crusade. Yes, sir. Why have you brought me here, demon slave? Keep your mouth shut, little man. If it were up to me, I'd have your tongue cut out and your head chopped off afterwards. No, he will not die today. He will watch. Watch what? You will see soon enough, my dear Marin. You know, you and your Golden Guard have served my master very well, without really knowing it, of course. However, you've outlived your usefulness the moment you betrayed your empire. I cannot let you leave this continent. And I intend to prevent you from leaving this continent. Gaze upon the great last crusade of your friend Reynold, my dear Marin. What a way to end it. So, we'll watch the epilogue. I'm kind of curious to see what the epilogue is. I mean, I'm sure we'll still have the Lysara explanation of who the Dark One is and all the gods and all that stuff. And I don't really know if there's that much else to say about this campaign. I guess I'll just talk about Arkain in general and how I'm sad to see it go. But it's time for me to find something else to play. We've been playing this for several months. The Golden Guard is no more. Their ships sunk, their armies drowned. Except for this Marin. I let him escape. We will meet again, of that I'm sure. Until then, he will live, knowing that he watched his friends and allies die, unable to save them. So after all that, it was all for naught. Reynald, in theory, dead. For the first time in forever, the Golden Guard is finally doing something useful. Too bad that their victory made your deception entirely pointless, Saphira. Gardon died. That's a success as far as I'm concerned. That slaver was a monster. A monster, yes, but he could have served balance. Regardless, it doesn't matter. The paladins and their cannon will take his place. They will be a shield against the demons for a long time. We will use this time to deal with our other enemies. Right, so that's all the same. Cannon still in place. Kingdom's safe. Empire bad because of Largoth and Lysara. I'm mostly just interested to see what different scene we'll have at the end with the Emperor being like, mwahaha, we'll take care of the Golden Guard now that they're all dead. So Marin's still alive, but Vandur's dead. All the ships are sunk. Interesting stuff. Anyway, we've got this, and then we've still got the Lysara scene, so I'll just start my little roundup, I suppose, in general about Arkain, but I talked about it after we watched the first epilogue, which is just, I'm so pleased with the way this campaign played out, and it's something, I don't want to say that it's basic or elementary, but it seems to me like it should be, and I wonder why more people don't utilize it, and that's bank data. And I think that's what makes a single player experience work overall. We watched this already. It was in the same as the Gardon campaign where Lysara took complete control over Edale. But I think that's what makes the difference between a competitive experience and not just that, but a single player standalone experience. When you have multiple maps, I think the thing that makes it stand out as a campaign are choices that allow a player to affect gameplay in some fashion, whether it's modified units or something that ties the maps together. So that's typically a story of some kind. Like, you can make several single-player one-off experiences. One's a tower defense, one's a build and destroy. But, like, what ties those together? It's a narrative experience, and I think that's what makes a campaign a campaign. Even if it's something that's completely silly, or as long as it's something consistent, like a unique faction. Like, I look at Marauders for StarCraft 2. Completely silly narrative, but there's a consistency to it that makes it a campaign and not just a bunch of standalone maps that have no relation to each other, even though the gameplay is very different. Arkain captures a lot of that, and I think the unique factions really make that work, because there were, 3, 4, 5 maps that all utilized the same terrain. It was the same map, but they were all pretty unique experiences because you used different factions and your objectives were slightly different. So I think that made it really fresh, and again, I think the narrative experience and also seeing little things that the player could do gameplay-wise actually matter in some way. I think that's really cool. So I keep referring back to the Lara thing, but just the idea that Solana being the queen and also Lara being alive results in this really interesting thing. I think that's cool. Your Grace, we've received news from the Imperial Navy. It is just as you predicted. Vandurus and the Golden Guard have turned against us. That is most unfortunate indeed. My uncle and his soldiers were loyal servants, but when I heard that Vandurus was not dealing with Gardon personally, it was obvious. Doesn't matter, they're all dead now. What are they doing now? They're all dead. Their ships have been destroyed only shortly after the Golden Guard had entered the ships. Ships. So, both Gardon and Vandurus have been dealt with. Very good indeed. Our airship will soon arrive at the capital, Your Grace. Very good. Make sure that everything is prepared. Of course, Your Grace. Yeah, so in this case, Largoth wins out. Largoth and Lysara win out fully. That's the worst ending of Golden Guard. I would argue that the best Golden Guard ending is the best in the sense that Largoth and Lysara have the least control. Kingdoms are fairly secure because of the canon. Yeah. Coolio. All right, that's it for Arkain. Again, I did my little roundup already, but I just want to say that the narrative experience of Arkain is really strong. And, like, the writing here or there, little tidbits, grammar or whatever, using the word ships twice in the same sentence, big deal. I think it's more about the overall feeling that you get when you're playing a mission and you realize that something narratively is paying off in a way that can be utilized in terms of gameplay. That's so cool. So, like, seeing how many outcomes there were with Korra and Scarlet, and realizing that Korra can have this really extremely good ability via Avenge. And that's specifically because of narrative choices and the decision to play missions in a specific way in the past. Is so cool to see that pay off, especially in a campaign where there is such a time commitment. So you're putting in all this effort, all this time, and you feel a payoff, even if it's something as simple as adding an ability to a hero, or adding an extra hero to a mission, or removing an extra hero from a mission, or changing a faction so that you use one unit instead of a different unit. That kind of stuff, again, I feel like I'm not a map maker, so I don't want to say this too lightly, but I feel like that's relatively straightforward to implement into maps, and I think that's what the strongest part of Arkain is, and that's what a lot of other campaigns could utilize, and they don't, and I'm kind of surprised about that. I think bank data, again, maybe it's way more challenging to utilize than I am talking about, both for StarCraft 2 and for Warcraft 3. So I don't know, maybe other map makers can fill me in on that, because that's what made this campaign so fulfilling. Everyone has a subjective experience when they play this stuff, though I did try to justify my experience with campaigns and what makes a campaign a campaign. It's that personality to the narrative that makes it a campaign versus just a bunch of single-player missions that are stuck together for no real purpose other than to say it's a campaign, when it's really not. It's just a bunch of arcadey maps. So again, I think I'd like to see this utilized more in any circumstance, just because I've seen it it's done so well in this instance, which is just fantastic, and it feels like a more personalized experience. And I mean, it's not like there are a billion different outcomes that you had to trigger for here. I think Shard 100 had 2 or 3 major options, specifically around the Elven Queen, and then the Gardon Van Durst choice, and then the Edale choice, that all had pretty big impacts. But otherwise, it was just changes to dialogue here or there. Oh, Blend killed the dragon, Blend didn't kill the dragon. You just have to keep track of that stuff and implement it somewhere as a change here or there. But otherwise, it's like, again, changes to gameplay, impactful changes to gameplay, where it really feels like I, the player, impacted this narrative to the campaign, which is why it's so neat. Again, and just like the different factions, I really enjoyed the different human factions that were here. It really just had a certain flair to it, and they all had their own personalities, like Golden Guard versus Iron Fist versus the Kingdom, Army of Kingdoms, stuff like that. It's all really neat. So I had a blast with Arkain. I am glad I'm a bit glad it's over now, though, just because it was a long time. And I'm probably going to play something a little more laid back next time. I'm thinking maybe like Legacy of Lordaeron, something more RPG-ish. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time when I do decide what I'm going to play. All right, bye, everybody.